In this session, we will ask the question, are public schools successful? Are they the best choice for our children? Are public schools successful, and are they the best choice in America for our children? Now, in reality, the public schools are no longer public schools. They are government schools, as the public have no say anymore. It is the government, the humanists, and the teachers' unions that decide what academics, what truths, and what lies are taught. Now we're going to look at the rise of public education in the USA. The early 1800s, anti-Christian school reformers, because schools were home schools and Christian schools back then. They strongly favored by Unitarian and liberal churches and socialists. And they argued that public schools funded by property tax would create good citizens, prevent crime, unite society around secularism, of course, and prevent poverty. That's in the early 1800s. Now, the Protestants at that time, they had some reservation. They had some cautions about public school systems supported by taxes. And so they were going to give it a test. And in 1849, they favored it, but they said this: the benefits of the system are so many, and the benefits are so great for a public school, that its religious or Bible deficiencies that can be supplied outside the public school are not a sufficient reason for abandoning it. They go on to say, if after a full and faithful experiment, that it is proven that loyalty to the religious interest or Bible interest of our children forbids the support of public education, we will establish parochial schools in which full doctrinal religious Bible instruction is possible. But the problem here is we're given a lopsided proportion, 40 hours a week to public school with 3 hours a week to church, Sunday school, and teaching. And the secular teachers and the secular texts versus Christian teachers with Christian texts, Bible texts, has a lopsided impact. And that's something that the Protestants overlooked. Now we're going to give you 8 points in the rise of public education. 2 we've already hit. Unitarian, liberal churches, and socialists greatly favor it. That ought to ring your bell. Funded by property tax. Now I can lose my property if I don't pay my taxes. Number 3, the Protestants has reservations until 1960 that they never followed up on. Number 4, the Catholics kept their parochial schools, their local church schools, and rejected totally the public schools. The King James Bible and McGuffey readers were the prominent readers in the early public schools. So the Protestants got fooled and thought they had no problem. But in 1857, point number 5, National Teachers Association. Now we got a union. 1867, the Federal Department of Education. Now we got the feds involved. And they started giving money grants in 1890. By 1918, every state had a compulsory attendance law. And number 8, this wound up being a civil monopoly on education with no competition. We're going to give you 4 inviting persuasions during the public school's rise. People trying to persuade you to go their way. First, the liberal, Unitarian, Christians, and the socialists in the early 1800s, they persuaded people that the Bible is not literal, it's not truth, it's got errors in it, you got to reuse reason, not the Bible, all religions lead to the same God, there's no virgin birth, no second coming, Jesus isn't God, no sin atonement, no resurrection, no miracles, no evolution is the way they say creation happened. Government gives aid to the poor, the sick, the social ills, and public education. They want a socialist government, and they had no opposition from conservatives from 1926 to 1960. In the early 1800s, the Bible fundamentalists had the opposite beliefs, and they wrote a book about it in 1915. The Bible is a book of truth. It doesn't have errors in it. That Jesus is God. He was born of a virgin. The Trinity. Jesus died for sin and rose again. He's coming back again. There's an eternal judgment. There are supernatural miracles. There's a 6-day creation. And people are supposed to help themselves and help others, not government. They support capitalism. And they dropped out of politics after the Scopes trial of 1926, leaving the humanists, the socialists, and the liberals unopposed until the 1960s. In 1848, the Communist Manifesto was written. The American Socialist Manifesto was written in 1919. It was exactly the same. They just changed the name to socialist. Property, banks, transportation, media, factories, and farms all belong to the government. A heavy income tax supported it. Equal pay for everyone. No inheritance. Redistribution of the population. They abolished all religions, and they established free education for all children in the government-ran schools. Asia went communist. Europe went socialist. And they're trying to get America. The religion of secular humanism arose in 1933. They believed, like the liberals and the Unitarian Church, evolution, no creation, no life after death. The scientific method is all we need. No supernatural God, no prayer, no worship. We need reason and intellect, not the Bible, and we're going to promote our beliefs through the educational system. Churches and their rituals and their methods, their activities must be altered and changed. Capitalism is inadequate. Socialized, equal distribution economy is what the humanists promoted. So what was the results of humanism in public schools? Well, in the Soviet Union, 1917, compulsory attendance, tax-supported government schools taught students to be loyal to a government that sent millions to slave labor camps in Siberia, starved to death peasants in the Ukraine, closed all churches, persecuted Christians, seized all property, and murdered 50 million opponents simply because they opposed them. The schools provided the willing hands, and the police and the army provided the fear. The National Socialists ruled Germany from 1933 to 1945, using its compulsory attendance, tax-supported public schools to turn ordinary German children into genocidal monsters. German soldiers and the secret police committed horrible atrocities against any citizens that opposed the government. And time forbids the facts on China, Cuba, and other dictatorial humanist nations committing atrocities on mankind. In the United States of America, and the public schools has produced more alcoholics, more addicts, drug addicts, more smokers, more teen sex, more sexually transmitted diseases, and more immorality. Produced more dropouts from high school, functional illiterates, and more school violence. Not a very good result in the American public schools. They took more tax money to try to improve education. Even the lotteries, the government got in the gambling business to help support education with lower results. More money, lower results. The international scoring, we are 28th in 8th grade math and 17th in 8th grade science in the industrialized global nations. Most students lack drive. They lack effort. They lack duty and responsibility to get educated and learn a job skill. Entertainment seems to be their main focus in America. Government schools thus has not achieved its goals, but they have promoted socialism, humanism, and immorality, not only in our public schools but in society. While the solutions to education, for your consideration, Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way he should go. A child shouldn't be taught to become a homosexual, a thief, an adulterer, liar, a sluggard, a lazy person that doesn't work, ignorant, can't read, can't write, can't communicate, can't calculate. And they shouldn't be taught to be a criminal. Teen sex and all of its sexually transmitted diseases shouldn't be taught. They shouldn't be taught to use alcohol, drugs, tobacco, which is killing thousands of Americans every year and physically harming millions of Americans every year. Profanity and witchcraft and such like should not be taught. We should be training them up in the way they should go. Proverbs 27:12. A prudent person foresees the evil, the danger, the harm, and hides himself, but the simple, the open-minded, they go on and are punished. And the school system should be producing prudent students that avoids the dangers. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, Hosea 4:6. A school system should give children knowledge to make good decisions so that they don't do things that will damage them financially, physically, or even bring death upon them. In Proverbs, also, it's Proverbs 4, it says, wisdom is the supreme thing. In all you're getting, get wisdom and get understanding. If it costs you all you have, get understanding. And so God says that educating our children and ourselves is the top priority, and we got to put every amount of time is needed and every amount of money that's needed. We can't cut costs and we can't cut time to educate our children to be prudent young people. Now, with these facts that I've presented to you, public schools are not the best choices. Consider this. 40% of legislatures and 40% of public school teachers put their kids in private schools. Legislatures and public school teachers should, because they're involved and know what's going on, rise up and fight for a change in the public school system. We need to axe the failed unions and the Department of Education. They haven't done their job. We need to fire them and start a competitive system where the best school wins, the tax money and the approval of the parent. Until then, the home schools, the private schools, and Christian schools are a possible alternative, a possible option for those who want their kids trained up in the way they should go. We can fault Protestants for supporting bad government schools all these years and for quitting on public issues. We can fault the humanists and the liberals, who are 20% of the population of America. They are 52% of the Democratic Party. So we can fault the Democratic Party, the humanists and liberals, because they're the ones promoting this kind of education in the American schools. Catholics, Protestants, and moral people need to unite for good public schools. Folks, our children's future is at stake. And the Bible says it is the supreme thing is to get understanding.